Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and I, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch, and as well as YouTube. And if you want to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing Chapter 6 of The Captain's Heart. Gralgiran put his hand against the wall and let out a moan. There, he whispered, and the male behind him chuckled and dug his soap-covered fingers into the shoulder muscle harder. You need to stop punching when you're at work at your desk. Dresderan said that, or remember to properly stretch. You know that stretching before a hunt or when training isn't doing much if you let your body go stiff the rest of the time. Gralgiran's attempt at voicing acquiescence was cut off by a wince as Dresderan pushed against a knot. Do I need to schedule you for physio-relaxation therapy? Isn't that why you spent the night? Clearly not, Dresderan replied with a laugh, because your back wouldn't be this tense if sex fixed that. Gralgiran smiled. Maybe we just didn't have enough of it. Way I hear it, you get plenty. You need to take better care of yourself. In the middle of combat isn't the place to realize you can't limber up. He backed against his friends. I say we start right. The emergency tone caused him to straighten and forget any play he'd intended on starting. Answer, he told the computer. Captain, the nightcom officer said. We're being hailed by the Earther station. What's the problem? They are demanding to speak to you. They've made it clear that without proper clearance, they can't allow us to continue on our course. Gralgiran went over the numbers. They should still be 5 days away. What reason could they have not to let the Federation merchant ship need of aid approach, other than the reason they were going there in the first place? Tell them I'm on my way. The sense I had was that they want to see you here now. Then point out that we operate on Kelsir space-time, and that here it's too early to bother a captain with something this inconsequential. I'll be there as quickly as I can. Yes, Captain. The call ended, and Gralgiran got a handful of first soap. Work calls. Dresderan was in the process of lathering himself. As soon as they were both soaped, he activated the rinse cycle, then the drying one, brushing his mane to keep it from tangling. This was one of the rare times he envied Kelsirians like his friend, who only asked short fur everywhere, but he didn't envy them enough to shear his mane off, as many in his position did. He trimmed it short enough it didn't fall over his face, and kept the tangle to a minimum. He was still damp when he left the shower, dressed, and hurried to the bridge. Gralgiran nodded to Emeria at the comm board as soon as he reached the center of the bridge. He stood straight as the center screen shifted to show an Earther seated in their comm before their comm in a dim room. Show an Earther seated seated before their comm in a dim room behind a dim room with other Earthers moving about or seated behind them. Their back to this person. He'd familiarized himself enough with Earther not to be surprised with how different they looked. It was bad form to gape when looking at another species for the first time. What's the problem? He demanded, not masking his annoyance. Even if their presence was a surprise, federal treaty guaranteed any properly registered ship would be received and allowed to explain itself once docked and no longer under an emergency. The Bane was registered in such a way under the merchant ship the Brave Traveler. The Earther's widening eyes on the mostly furless face didn't help. When it spoke, the sounds made no sense. He doesn't speak Kelsirian, Emeria said. Right. Unlike stations within the Federation proper, this Earther station didn't have a reason to expect other species. I apologize for my presumption, he said in Federalese, and hoped that they at least were taught that, as was regulation for communication officers. That they didn't have a reason to expect other species wasn't a reason not to be prepared. Federalese was a second language to any who traveled through space. What is the problem? The problem, the Earther male said, a tremble in his voice that hadn't been there when he spoke his own language, is that this is human territory and you can't. We are still within unclaimed territories, Gralgiran corrected. But you are on a trajectory for Einstein, which is within human territory. You need to turn back to Kelsirian space. Einstein is the Earther name for the station, appeared on the screen. The name was written in phonemes, since while Emeria could read and write Earther, the system wasn't set to use it. If your scanners aren't powerful enough to read the state of the brave, then let me make the request. The brave traveler has suffered and is in need of aid. I'm sorry you have problems, but I can't. By Federation law, a properly registered ship claiming aid must be granted a berth and aid rendered. He recited the line every captain memorized because too often an Allied station claimed not to know. The Earther looked to his left and said something. Asking for confirmation appeared on the screen. I can't make out the other response. Gralgiran nodded to the comm officer. I need to take this up with the commander. The screen went white before he could respond. The pylon operator muzzled but looked at Emeria without speaking. We are still connected, but the signal isn't active. That's pretty inconsiderate, Elrar spat. Just having you wait until his commander agrees to speak with you? We had him wait until the captain arrived, Emeria replied. The Earther's a calm officer, Elrar countered. He doesn't matter, but you don't leave the captain just standing. He might have... That's enough, Gralgiran said. He didn't allow himself to feel annoyance at the treatment. It was barely 50 years ago that Kelsirian Kelsirians and Earthers first made contact. Even if they were shepherding them into the Federation, he didn't expect them to be used to how things were done. It might not even happen within his lifetime. It had taken more than a century and a half, according to history, for Kelser to finally settle into how the Federation worked, instead of demanding it get its way at every encounter. What should we do, Captain? Emeria asked. Elrar has a point that this could take a while. How Earthers proceed when it comes to escalating to their leader wasn't covered in the contact course I took. He relaxed his stance and placed his hand behind his back. I can wait. I won't have his commander wait on me when he calls. As Elrar said, having an officer wait was acceptable. Alphas were accorded better treatment. You wouldn't see me just standing there, the pilot muttered. Standing was the captain's position, at the ready for whatever might happen. We're being hailed, Emeria said, ears tilted in surprise. He nodded, and a different Earther appeared on the screen. The fur on top of the head was sheared short and flat on top and side, giving it an angled appearance that looked stranger than the lack of muzzle. The brown eyes stared at him. Gralgiran fought the urge to think less of the Earther because they sat. It was fine for officers to sit at their posts, but leaders stood. Only that was Kelsirian thinking. Who knew what Earther thought was proper leadership posture? I'm Neil Jackson, commander of the Einstein Research Station, the Earther said in barely accented Federalese. What is the situation? I am Gralgiran Elharnir, captain of the Brave Traveler. We have a reactor malfunction and are requesting aid. Don't you have people able to fix it? My engineer was injured in the malfunction. He is unconscious, and it will be weeks before he is conscious. Before he recovers. Before he recovers, according to his supervising medic, and he has suffered brain damage that can't be analyzed until he has regained consciousness. And you don't have any technicians who can fix the problem? They lack the specialized knowledge needed to work as deeply as needed. They lack the special knowledge to work as deeply as needed to repair the damage. We are currently on ship-wide power, and any sudden need for propulsion puts a strain on that generator. Even without a muzzle, Gralgiran was confident he saw a smile before the commander put a cup to his lips. There was muttered sound before he drank. I don't think I don't think I should say what he said. The word appeared while the comms are active. So he was dealing with someone who didn't like other species. It was more common than Gralgiran liked, but he was used to it. He did wish the Earther had ears, or that he could get sent through the screen. He hadn't bothered considering he'd need to know how to read one of them until now. Hopefully there was documentation he could read about that within the Hunter database. When the Earther remained silent, he decided to force things along. Commander, if you need a reminder of Federation law, I'm sure our representative on your station will. I know I can't turn you away, Captain. The tone sounded neutral enough. Come to a full stop 100 kilometers from the station. We'll find you a berth then. Einstein out. The screen was white again. The connection has been terminated. Okay, NRR demanded. What did he mother? Emeria looked at him. LRR was named after the hunter, so Gralgiran didn't expect she'd let this rest. That you wouldn't tell us already establishes he's a speciesist. Giving us the detail won't change that. But LRR, I don't want to find out you've been spreading this to others. I won't have this kind of prejudice on my ship. Is that clear? Yes, Captain. He mocked our vaunted technology if Tex couldn't fix it, and he called us cats. It's one of their non-sentient animal. It's used as an insult when said about us. He read LRR's anger in the ears and the tension in her shoulder. He decided to let her work out how to proceed, process it, but to inform Leha, so she could have someone from counseling keep an ear on the pilot. Everyone was entitled to their belief and how they dealt with them, but he couldn't have it interfere with investigations. If she couldn't remain calm around Earthers, because of this, he'd have to ensure she remained on the ship. LRR, do we need to adjust our speed to stop at the point the commander demanded? She studied her board She studied her board and entered information. No, Captain. We're already set to come to maneuvering speed well before that. Thank you. He left the bridge and headed to get breakfast. He blocked, then stepped back so the claws wouldn't rake his stomach. Brelin stepped forward, slashing again, and he sacrificed his side to get himself inside, within her defense, and planted an elbow to the side of her head. That's better, she said, getting to her feet. You didn't let me push you to the wall this time. I am able to learn, Brelin. She smirked. We just need to work on how long it takes. She rushed him, and he had to block until she tripped him and straddled his chest, grinning. And again, a mighty alpha falls to a daughter of Ilmar. You know, if you want the position, there are easier ways to get it than beat me into submission. She patted the side of his face before standing. I'm more than happy to be one of your betas. Too much thinking involved with being an alpha. She offered him her hand and helped him to his feet. She grinned. And this way, I get to have a bunch of hunters I can order around and not have to worry about one of the generals not liking the scent of what I leave behind. She'd been with him since he'd gotten the Bane and had heard of the attempts to take it from him. He was too independent, was why it happened, according to Tom's friends in the back rooms. Too dedicated to the hunt, instead of hunting those Kelsir felt should be hunted. Gralgiran never spoke his mind to those people when he stood before them, answering their questions. Never reminded them that as much as they wanted it otherwise, the hunters were the gods' weapon before theirs. Gralgiran trusted the gods' fickle moods more than the greed of Kelsir's leader. It was why he went home as little as he had to. Why he hardly ever saw his parents, even if he missed them dearly. And that concludes Chapter 6 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe. Hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is available on Ream Stories. And if you want to listen to this live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.